ang estimates ng DOLE, and according to DOLE, 2016.
As architects, we should always check our routine every day kung paano natin i-enhance to be competitive.
Dalawang partido ng any position, any argument, or any memoranda sa Supreme Court.
Actually, that's one of the things I want to challenge you guys in STC, right? You're all young.
Talagang yung parang intertask agency nila dito, talagang heavily na talagang
a map of the 62 EQFs that are built now. So we have a bunch in Bulacan, Caloocan, Rizal, Marikina, and wherever pa.
MMDA.
Yeah.
Miss Julian Nebriha, ENT.
Julian Nebriha.
Something that I've loved to talk about, of course, even before this pandemic, is the value of streets and the way that we see them, the way that we place value on them as public.
Let me also congratulate you all for having this weekly webinar. How we call this? Series or session?
Session
lang, ma'am.
If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, kayo lang yata ang chapter ng UAP ang gumagawa nito. Tama ba?
Hindi namin alam eh.
Hindi namin alam, ma'am.
Hindi namin alam.
Patuan lang to.
So for this, I salute you, officers and members, for a job well done.
Thank you.
Doing a great job.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up? This is Adrian Tampolino, your international ambassador, zooming in from Singapore, and we are broadcasting live from Manila, Philippines. And welcome to Archi Hustle in Arktoberfest. And in controls, we have our creative director, architect Edsel Malelang, and of course, on deck, we have our vice president architect Archie Tolentino and our chapter secretary architect Burley Locsin. Hello, guys. Good evening. Hi, guys. Good evening. Yeah.
Good evening, SEC.
Yes, and we are on our second episode ng the Arktoberfest series, and this is the second episode ng Archi Hustle in Arktoberfest, of course. So before anything else, we would like to give a shout out to our sponsors, of course, Boysen, the #1 paint, and ITC Power, and this is powered by ITC Corporation. Sino pa ba iba natin sponsors dyan, Burley? We have BITC, Starken, and also Foamy Philippines. Ayan. And of course, si Crown Pipes din. Ayan. Thank you very much. So guys, are you excited for tonight? Because this is quite a new format for us. Kasi like, we're just going to talk about our thoughts on urban and anything urban. And we are just going to talk with startup because these two are working with them or have worked with them.
Yep.
And of course, high caliber kasi high caliber na ang ating mga speakers for tonight and ang mga panelists natin. But panelists din tayong tatlo.
Yeah.
So ready na ba kayong dalawa? Magkakaupusan tayo ng Ayan. So without further ado, I will now introduce our speakers.
Time out, Tams.
Sige, bumati pala muna tayo.
Hey, yan. Let's look at our chat. Let's check our viewers from our Facebook and our YouTube page. First off, the list. Syempre naman.
All
Hello,
right.
hello, Sir
Senior past
Benj.
president, Bench
Yes.
sorry.
Ito, si Mr. MGX. Kilala na natin siya.
Si Mark.
Si Mark. Yeah.
Siya yung nag-deliver ng lahat ng drinks natin.
And of course, our past president, Architect Jordan Tang, tatlong hari. Ayan.
Lords,
Good
what's up?
evening to Sir Jerds.
Ayan.
Of course, from Crown Pipes, hello, Sir Rodel Picadizo.
Yan.
Long time no see.
Yes.
Hello, Angela. Ayan na. Sinusuportan ako ng friend ko. Char.
Naman.
Ayan. O, sino yan, Chi? Kinilig
Yung
ka.
kilala yan. Mamaya na lang. Skip nyo na yan. Hindi.
Yan.
Shoutout sa number 1 fan ko. Yun. Ayan. And this is si Zarina Vinuya. Hindi siya, yung kanina. Oy, Mitch!
Yan si Mitch. Mitch, get well soon.
Get well soon, Mitch. Right.
Yan, may fan ako. Hello, Kenneth. Long time no see.
Kenneth Batazar. Good evening to you. Our sponsor, of course, ITC
Corporation.
What's up?
Sunod si Krishna.
Yan.
Si Krishna who made all, well, not
Yes.
all, but who lead the creative
Yes.
team ng
Yes.
ng Arktoberfest. So yung mga nakikita yung mga dyan, yan, siya yan.
Oo. I mean, for a few years na rin. Not just this event, no? For a few events na rin. Walang sawa. Babaeng walang pahinga. Let's go, Abby.
Hello, Abby.
Hi, Abby.
Our past president.
Chris Aquino, ayan. Another one from Benilde. Siyempre.
Yes. Si Ina.
Hello, Ina. Long time no see. Ayan.
Yan.
Malamang hindi ako makauwi, di ba? Long time no see sa lahat.
Ayan,
Ay, Press Bonds.
President.
Dapat nandito ka.
Oo nga, dapat nandito yan Hi, Mugs. My classmate from college. Hi, Mugs.
There you go. And, sino yan?
Arky. Sorry, hindi ko siya kilala. Sorry.
Ano?
Oo nga eh.
Mysterious.
Last na. Ayan. Alright.
Ayan.
Sorry, before I cut you, ano gagawin natin, Tamps? Who tonight's gonna
I
be a
will
special
introduce our special guests for tonight. Okay. We'll start off, of course, from the Philippines. She is an experienced architect with a demonstrated history of working in architecture, planning industry, also in education and community building. She is skilled in social innovation, design, urban design, and writing. She is strong in arts and design. She is a design and arts professional with a master's degree focused in advanced architecture from the Institute of Advanced Architecture in Catalonia. She graduated there last 2016. Okay. And then she has a vibrant network, of course, in Europe, Asia, Africa, and as well as North and South America. I think she has some gigs over there, work over there, and collaborations as well with architects and community builders and visionaries on that on that regions. Sorry. Okay. She is a visiting professor in Abu Dhabi for the Masters in Architecture and also in the University of Cordilleras. She has been the associate dean for the Environment Studies cluster for the School of Design and Arts at De La Salle College of St. Benilde in Manila from August 2016 to 2020. She is a senior industry fellow she was a senior industry fellow, of course, from the same institution from May 2014 to July 2016. And right now, she is focusing on her practice as well as a principal architect in Atelier Funk Architecture from 2008 to present. She is a founding partner of the Architecture Collective, which started September 2020 to present. She worked as a consultant from August 2013 to 2016 for the Benilde Architecture and Design Consortium. And she was a contributing writer for Blueprint magazine from 2009 to 2019. As I said, she graduated her master's in advanced architecture from the from the Institute of Advanced Architecture of Catalonia in Barcelona, Spain, in 2016, and an alumni of the University of Santo Tomas College of Architecture and Fine Arts, graduated 1984. Ladies and gentlemen, first time on Archie Hustle's screen, or the Archie Hustle, is architect Choi Funk. Hi, Choi. Welcome to Archie
What an
Hustle.
introduction!
Happy to be here among friends and
God.
yes. Yes, thanks for
thanks.
having me. I'm really very happy to be here.
Welcome,
Yes.
And thank you for
Okay.
the generous words, no? Thanks.
Ano man? Ikaw pa ba?
Shortened version pa yan.
Shortened na yun, ma. Okay. I will now introduce to you one of our special guests for tonight.
Yes.
He has worked with evolving. He liked to work with with emerging cities. He's designing creative and innovative solutions to urban issues. He's passionate about community development and resilience through community-led permaculture innovations, and he is optimistic about the future and motivated by social impact. He was a fellow at Utopia Kathmandu from 2019 to 2020. Currently, he is a technical facilitator at Q Studio 2019 to present. Currently, he is also a volunteer as an urban planning advisor in Lalitpur. Yeah, for designing and aiding, facilitating charrettes for pocket parks in Lalitpur, if I have mentioned it correctly. Of course, he was an intern, urban planner, and designer at Kathmandu Metropolitan City Planning Commission. He also was a legal planning author at Cedric Information Systems from 2015 to 2016. He graduated his Bachelor of Arts in Town and Urban Planning at the Newcastle University in Australia from 2013 to 2016. In the same university, he also graduated his Master of Science in International Spatial Planning, of course, in Newcastle University. And currently, he is, I think, doing the diploma in academia for the urban design. So, ladies and gentlemen, zooming in from Kathmandu is Mr. Adarsh Rai.
Woo!
Welcome to
Adarsh.
our show, Adarsh. Well, I think may lag yung internet niya.
Oh.
Adarsh, are you there?
I think he's having
Hi, everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hi,
sorry, there's a bit of
Adarsh.
a lag.
There you
Welcome
go.
to the
Hi,
show.
everyone.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Yes. So, yeah, as I said, we will be talking about anything urban today,
So,
but we are not anything, basically, not anything, because we have our prompts and
Thanks,
cues for tonight. Wait. So yeah, we are going to talk about startups. We're talking about circular economy and anything urban. So basically, ideas are going to fly around. Imagination of our listeners will be ignited for tonight.
Yes.
Yeah,
Pandora's
things like
box
that.
of topics.
Mhm. So yes, we can. I think we can already start. So for the prompt for tonight, in order for us to kickstart our conversation for tonight, the question is, how will you ignite entrepreneurial spirit in employed architects? I think we have to start with Miss Choi, and then we'll go around with it.
What's the question again?
The question is, how will you ignite entrepreneurial spirit in employed architects?
Entrepreneurial spirit.
Miss Choi, you're on mute.
On mic, on mute.
Yes.
Yeah,
There you
yes,
go.
yes.
Thank you very much for that question, Pams.
Wow.
Parang
Miss
universe.
Universe.
No, so but I was thinking, I've been thinking a lot about that, no? How, because I happen to work also with our national organization for architects, and how I thought a lot about the fact that all of us, I mean, generally, all architects who studied architecture in the Philippines are by and large taught to work in offices that will be employed, basically. But and that's fine, that's there's no problem about that, and then we learn along the way, and then little by little we find ourselves parang wanting to open our own offices, and that's also the way to go, also because so that you call the shots and you bag your own projects. Yeah. However, it is also possible that straight from the university you can, get your feet wet, and that will be interesting for us to look into. Um, pero I think the best way for us is to really observe the world around us. Uh, I have said, especially, I have a very recent experiences from the school I used to teach in, that design is really about solving problems in our world. And I have to start off. I'm sure Adar should also pick up, with this conversation about the VUCA world. Not very many know about the VUCA world. It's a military term that started in 1987, describing our world to be volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. If you look at the world from this point of view, you will start to think, parang all of a sudden, you're never sure about what's going to happen. And while we are, there's, as I said, there's no problem naman about being hired. But I would like to encourage the architects out there to observe the world around you and think and see what might be out there. It's possible that you suggest the need for us architects, not necessarily just designing the regular typologies, no, like houses and um, commercial buildings, but really try to understand what does the city need. And so, if you have it in you to to um, to find solutions to existing problems, and then maybe you can, that's the way for you to get started with a business. Also, now with technology kasi, things are happening very fast, and it is for us to take advantage of this. And I think we will never go wrong because we're fast. So like halimbawa, you start with something and then your organization is lean, and then you respond to a market. Kasi alam mo, I don't know, but we were talking with our friends from Korea. They have an architect, a license for architects, no? Tapos meron yung architecture designer. Tapos meron ding architectural engineers. Sabi ko, ba't ang dami? Tapos lahat siya may lisensya. Tapos you know what they said? Because they felt that the market is like shrinking for certain professions. And it's for us talaga to be more attentive to these changes that are happening in the world. And then it's not about just surviving as architects or being resilient, as in bawa you're hit hard and you lose a project, or maybe itinakbo ng subcontractor mo yung funds ng client, and it has happened to me, and talagang I'm suffering for it. But I have to be agile. So like halimbawa, you even like when it hits you, ilag ka, and then pwede ring they hit you with a ball, parang dodgeball, and then you hit them with it also. So this is the agility that we need. And I think if you start thinking this way, then maybe architects don't really just have to be designing houses or structures, but anywhere from the doorknob to a city. Because it's we're designers, and I'd like to tap into that. And then the wonderful thing about this time is that we can partner. Like I can partner with Adarsh, and then we can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, take note of that, Adarsh. Okay, and then also you
Especially,
guys,
yeah, especially
participating
especially in the era of collaboration.
there you go. Yeah,
Technology,
so that's
yes.
yeah. So that's it for now.
Yes.
Quite long.
How about you, Adarsh? I have understand that you have worked with startups, but how do you uplift the entrepreneurial spirits of of anyone who aspires to be an entrepreneur or things like that, or people who doesn't have any interest in doing such?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, before I start, sorry I got cut out. I'm back now, which is great. I hope you can all hear me. Yeah. So what I would say is, I'm come from an urban planning background, right?
Yes.
Like when I was in university, I would say I would have never thought about maybe starting a business or maybe going into like entrepreneurship, creating ventures that solve any issues, right? I mean, what I got taught was like, you have problems and you solve them within the kind of framework that they exist in, right? And the framework is created by, I would say, like the government or multinational, everyone who has a role in a certain problem that exists in the city, right? And so what I would say is, like, I got into Utopia and it completely changed my mind, right? Because I come from an urban planning background where there is design involved, where we're like physically designing things, right? But we have to see the world as just more than just what we see, right? It's like how we feel, how we interact with each other, things like just services. I mean, that's the overlying kind of term, but like the services that we use to kind of connect with each other, the services that we use on a daily basis to get what we need, right? I think these are the areas where we can transition from just thinking about like designing from a physical standpoint to like more something that is more nuanced, right? So like there's, I mean, nuanced in a way that you can't really see, right? And I think something that Troy touched upon was the agility, the kind of like the need to be able to move between sectors and move between kind of skills and educations in order to kind of come up with solutions that fix issues that are that are kind of inherent to all of us and that we all experience, right? And so I think that's probably the most important thing. What I would say is for any architect that is listening in is like, don't be pigeonholed by your set of skills, right? You have skills. They're fantastic skills, right? But there are obviously maybe skills that you have that paired with something else. Maybe something like if you go into human-centered design for maybe the service sector, if you go to like systems thinking, then you can find solutions that are more concrete, that are more flexible and more resilient to any like long-term things, right? I think what happens often is we design solutions, right, without kind of actually thinking about how it interacts with the rest of the system, right? So no problem exists in isolation, right? It doesn't exist by itself. There's always things that are kind of what's the word? Kind of just like
like lead up to it.
Yeah. They're connected. They're all the issues that we have are connected in a way.
Sick.
Right?
I'd say sick.
Yeah. I mean, I would consider them more anthropocenic, right? So more in terms of the way that we just think about the world, right? I think we think about the world in a very mechanistic way, right? Everything's a machine. It's just ones and zeros, right? It's just everything is ones and zeros. It's yes or no's. Where we see issues that are much bigger than that, right? And so if we try to fix one problem, we'll kind of ignore all the other problems down the line, and that's not the right way of doing things, right? We need to find solutions that are long term and kind of lead to a better world for all of us, right?
I agree.
Yeah, I'll stop for
I
that.
agree. Yeah,
Wow.
I agree. Yeah.
How about you, Archie? You, on a standpoint of currently being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
how will you encourage and uplift yung entrepreneurial spirit ng especially the young ones? Kasi ang vibes namin sa iyo talagang sa kabataan ikaw talaga ikaw ang titingalain ng mga
Future.
kabataan.
On the next
Yes.
election, please
Must
vote for
watch.
me. There you go. But before I answer that, I wanna just highlight some of what Choi. I'm gonna be careful not say the
Yeah.
and the Adarsh. So
League.
yeah, there you go. So Choi was saying architects are problem solvers, and I think that's really at the core of our training, that we are critical thinkers. There's and our output is creative. Also, which is but also touches on the engineering side. So we have the ability to walk both worlds of creatives and very logical persons.
Yeah.
So we're right in the middle. So we can go this way, that way from time to time, and I think that gives us a huge advantage over other professions. It also gives us a different point of view in terms of looking at things. For me personally, besides architecture, I also delve into footwear design. I've tried working with industrial designers before, while I was actually already an architect, and I've seen some good points in the industrial design process, and in the architecture process. So in a way, there's a lot of things that we can learn from other professions that we would only be able to see if we interact with them. If we don't, like Adarsh was saying, if we don't pigeonhole ourselves into whatever path we chose. I'm an architect. I took my board exam. I have my license. This is gonna be my path to success. But being an entrepreneur, it is actually a question of how well, how do I put this? Before starting our own practice, I was working for somebody else. So I started my practice because I wanted to um, design further than what architecture is allowing me to. Basically, I wanted to design shoes, and in the Philippines, nobody's heard of an architect designing shoes, right? But in other countries, well, the corporate structure doesn't really also accept somebody with that background. But now we're seeing a change in the industry. Being a creative, regardless of your background, industrial design, planning, architecture, fashion, interior design. Now everybody's a creative. There's no lines. You see musical artists designing whatever shoes or dresses, and you see architects designing. All of my examples are shoes because that's all I know. Or maybe cars, or it's beginning to be apparent that an interdisciplinary practice is the way to go moving
Yeah.
forward. No, and we are not trained as such in our Filipino culture. Now, when you're a doctor, you just do this way. If you're an engineer, this is how you. There's a perception that if you don't go that way, that we are a failure, and nobody wants to be a failure. Everybody's afraid to fail and afraid to let down your parents or whoever, right? So we just move along. We live our lives a few years, and then a few years down the road, you realize, I should have done this, I should have done that. No, so I think this pandemic or the situation has really opened our eyes or really forced us, right, to look at other outlets of how to provide service. I have colleagues right now or architects before, contractors before. They're trying to do. They're going to other businesses.
They cook.
Like food, exactly, right?
What?
Like, who knew that their love for food could be a possible business, right? And they're successful at that. So this pandemic, this situation really has forced us to just throw away whatever perception you have, and you know Just go for it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna post another question for everybody after. Then maybe we can keep the ball rolling after everybody's answered.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you guys. Um, is an entrepreneur or is entrepreneurship can entrepreneurship be learned, or are people born with it? You know what I
Do
mean?
you mean you're asking if it's a talent or not?
If it's if it's
You can
inherent
be
in
born with
people,
it, or can it
are
be
you
learned? More
exactly? Are
importantly,
you born with it,
because
or
we're
can
here
it be learned?
already. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it, right? No, but then you were, if I may say this, and I mean, please cut me if like you wanna say something. But there was something that you said earlier about like an architect who's designing shoes. Have you heard of Frank Lloyd Wright designing the dress of the lady of the house?
There you
And
go.
then he designed for her. And then she said, "Uy, ang galing naman, my architect designs my clothes, ganun. Yung pala may bayad." Yun. So
Ah.
again, yeah, but that's Franco, right? Because as I had a chance to visit his Oak Park, like
Mm.
all the houses in that area, because it came as a birthday gift to me by my husband. Okay, so
Oh.
like I visited all of it, and then they said in this house, Frank Lloyd Wright practically designed also the clothes for, I mean the gown for the
Exactly.
lady, because he can.
Yep.
Not that that it was forced out of him, because he can, because I really believe that architects can do a lot of things, that they can sing,
Yep.
and
They
then
can
they
sing.
can, diba? There'll be another session that will sing like that. And then no, parang just to say that especially now when who goes out, I mean, even I have problems with my projects that it's okay, I get paid, but my no work no pay
Yeah.
workers, how do they go about it? And so we take care of them.
Exactly.
But then parang just to say that architects can do a lot more. But with your question about can it be learned,
Yes. Or are you born with
you
it?
know, in front of a need, oh my God, please don't tell me what can be learned and what cannot be learned.
Yeah.
This is the
I
right
mean,
room for that. This is the right
right,
forum
I
for
mean,
that, I
let's
guess.
just do it. And then like this, gone are the days when we'll do things alone. Let's partner up. Let's do things together. Like maybe there are some things that I can see from this vantage point, and then let's talk about it.
Wait.
And then with the community, because like right now, when I was working in a school, we happen to work with barangays, no, in our area, and we created an estero pavilion because we wanted to teach the people how to take care of the environment. And so maybe we said, but they don't have public spaces, and public spaces is a way for you to build relationships. So we said, but there's no space here. So what we did is like we put it on top of the estero, so we call it the estero pavilion. And so
There you
we're
go.
doing that. And then after the term, it's done. But I've been talking about it because we learned a lot from it. Like people were saying, but architect, why do you keep on coming back? Because I love the idea that we can do this together, but we don't have the money. And so we'll just be friends. A lot of my friends from we're looking for a project that
Mm.
is actually just this, that
Mm.
you do something for the community. It
Mm.
is architecture, but then
Mm.
there's a sustainability plan whereby
Mm.
you create also a social program. So
Mm.
I have a sociologist, a social worker with me. And so the we're writing down the proposal. And we thought, I have a friend in Thailand. He does exactly that. He said, you find a problem, you create the solution, and you write about it. And then there are like ADB, UNDP, they will give you the money for it. You include also the pay for you that you are going to,
Of course.
yeah. So that
Of
is
course.
part of the whole thing. And then once it's done, it's done. But there's a
Yeah.
program that is sustainable,
Yeah.
and you teach the people how to do it. And this is something that architects can do. You look around society and look for a problem, find a solution, write about it, and then ilako mo. I mean, sorry, excuse me, Adarsh. It just means that
Shop
you
around.
go
You
around,
sell it. You sell it.
Sell it. Yeah.
sell the idea.
Yeah.
And then I will not say this if I have not experienced it. I am currently working on such a project, and it's giving me so much hope because we have
Oh.
about what 80% poor people.
Yeah.
And then they said to me, architect, why do you keep on coming back? And then I told them, because I see here a possibility. You have no options in life, but we are here and we can work with you. And we're not even just working with barangays. We're working with mothers in that area, out of school youth, and then even Taugama. I mean, can you imagine fraternity?
Fraternity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because they're the machos, so we're going
Yeah.
to get the carpenters from them.
And they have the commitment because they're really into the group.
They're invested in their community.
Invested, yeah.
So I think there's hope. There you go.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
I
I just
mean-
asked the question because right now, being an entrepreneur, it sounds sexy, right? Everybody's saying that. You look at the bios on Instagram, Facebook, entrepreneur. Really? Are you really an entrepreneur? Are you really ready to take on the challenge of building your plane while you're flying it? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. But Adarsh, you were saying, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, could I just hop in quickly? Like Archie,
Sure.
something you said earlier was like, no one wants to be a failure, but
Yeah.
like everyone fails, right? We all fail in life, right? We all, it's a way of learning. If we don't fail, we don't learn, and so being afraid to fail limits how far you want to go somewhere, right? Like you have to give it a go, and then if you fail, then you have to learn from your mistakes, right? And then you have to kind of figure out what it is, right? And so, like, I'm pretty sure everyone has an example of even like in school, right? You fail, but you kind of figure out what you did wrong, and then you don't fail,
learn.
hopefully.
Then you learn.
But yeah, but the thing is, like, for some people, it takes longer than others, right? That's the thing. And some people are naturally gifted wanting to be businessmen. Like, I think there's a term, I mean, without getting into the semantics of it too much, right? The term entrepreneur has a kind of like quote unquote, like, it has a certain reputation on it, like you said, Archie, right? Like everyone wants to have that on their Instagram bio, right? But what I would what I would say is, like, we can all be entrepreneurs. Like I don't know what the cultural context would be in the Philippines. Maybe like
I think he got caught.
Yeah, another power outage.
Another power outage.
But while we're waiting for Adarsh, how about
Yeah.
you, Burley?
Yeah,
How
Bernie,
about
what do
you,
you
Burley? The first question, Burley, is
Cheers.
okay.
Yeah, no,
Cheers.
I'll just add na lang. So I agree totally with Choi and Archie and Adar, syempre. But, like, being an entrepreneur is about answering a problem and making a business out of it. So if you're an architect, then you have to use your tool, right? So your tool is service and thinking about solutions through design. So this is where you get creative as an entrepreneur and an architect. So, and I do believe that parang it's not about being born as an entrepreneur or even learning to become an entrepreneur. It's just about that drive to answer a problem and do the respective steps to accomplish it. Parang ganon.
Actually, I was thinking of the same thing because we forgot about the basics of being an entrepreneur because they say, right, that entrepreneur is not about what the cash flow. It's it's actually about solving a problem that there is and honoring that there is actually a problem, and you as an entrepreneur or as someone who is actually a problem solver would find ways to actually solve it. And then, as I said, that's how you ignite the entrepreneurial spirit of not just architects, but also for anyone, diba? And I think I'm not saying hindi ko bubuhatin yung bangko ng mga architects, but what I want to say is that we have technical background, right? And I think there is much power doon sa technical background and the tools that we know in solving different problems, especially in the urban setting. Just to hop into the urban ideas, urban thoughts that we are having tonight. So I think that's one, and that's one in how to ignite the entrepreneurial spirit of anyone. But and the second question is, can it be learned, or is it born? I think it can be learned. That's why you have to look at the problem in a problem, just to be pragmatic about it. And in every problem there is a different solution. So even though that you are a seasoned entrepreneur or a seasoned businessman, blah blah blah, you still have different attacks, and you will develop different models then in solving and doing the business.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Let's say you're my age. I mean, I'm already at this age where when I studied my master's, and then the requirement is that I don't, because I know CAD, I don't know Rhino. And so what I did, my classmates, I will not say which country, but my classmates had difficulty expressing themselves, because as designers also, it's so important that we have the narrative.
Yes.
Which I have, because I know how to tell a story like this, but they have difficulty. But I have difficulty with my Unity, which is one of my subjects. It's like when you simulate mobility, and we have to say, like, basta,
Unity, the software.
Yeah.
Unity.
Yeah, I have difficulty because I'm in a hurry, and I don't have time to learn that anymore. And then I use a Mac, and it has to be a non-Mac. You know what
Windows.
we collaborate. I do their essay, we talk, and then I write it. And then I told them, okay, you do my homework. And so we collaborate. So it's the same thing when we start with our businesses. If you're not business savvy, are you open to partner up with someone who instead has the thing for it? So you don't have to learn it. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then you make it lean, so that you don't have to pay so much. You have to pay another one like this. You also do the work, but you do your expertise, then the other one does this, and then you work together.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Would that work?
That would work. But for the sake of the audience, ma'am, that is not actually into the startup scene, can you briefly discuss what a lean startup is?
This time you start, Adarsh.
Okay, Adarsh, can you briefly discuss what is a lean startup?
Yeah.
Just a short statement about it.
I don't really know the correct definition or answer to that question, but what I would say is just maximizing the things that you've got, right? So you have a budget of so much, but you see, without getting into the financial things, right? Like, we think about the types of capital that we have, right? There's social capital, there's human capital that we can still use, right? In collaboration with others, right? Who freely want to give it. People who, your friends and stuff like that, who have different skills, knowledge to what you have. So you take those on board, and then you use it as well as possible. I think that's the way I would see it as.
Yeah.
Maximizing what you have. Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Choi?
Yeah, I think, for me, I think what's important is that we're able to, for example, because the difference between startup and entrepreneur, the entrepreneur already has a market. You know what people want. Like, let's say food. Everyone always has, like, I never knew that beside me there is one who does fantastic buko pie, and then they put ube underneath, and then there's buko pie, and then sabi ko, how small, pero ang sarap kasi ang thick niya. So sabi ko, ito talaga pinagmamalaki ko siya. Talaga, I'm so proud of him. And it's just close by. And then, stuff like this. You have a market. Instead, when it comes to creating a startup that is lean, you find a problem that is worth solving. And then you define the solution. Like, halimbawa, what's the problem? In this, like, there's always a problem with the deliveries. Because, a lot of times they would tell me and say, I'm along Taft and I'm here in Nakpil. And they said, why are you there? I told you my address is exactly this. So I have to find what is the problem of the mapping, of finding out. So if I'm able to find a solution, I can help uh, because there's a very, very particular service of like the is it a problem of the internet? I can find a solution for that. And then I have to validate the market, but there's really a need for that. A lot of the deliveries get lost, and then when what they do, they put sometimes we found out they say that they delivered it already, para they can get more. Kasi baka someone's going to the direction of the south. So they have four things, ganyan yung. So nagpapaandar din yung mga ano. So like, like if we can find a way to not to have this delivery guys cheat, yung ganyan. So like, this is a problem that we found. So like, parang it's something that I thought that you can spend little, and then like this, the important thing is that you're able to think fast, because you have technology, you can think fast. So I think I go back to the challenge of agility. When you say agile kasi, you have technology on your side, so you have to know. So like someone my age, sometimes my colleagues my age would say, well, how do you know these things? You have to waste time. You have to learn. And you have to talk more to the young people. Like, I have 4 kids, your age. So you're almost like my kids. And so, like, I was thinking, so I have to be hip enough and fun enough so that I can, like, really waste time, find time so that they will teach me also the things that they know. And it's so important that, like right now, we have to think fast, and then stop fighting the science, because a lot of also the older people, they complain a lot about not understanding the young people, and even but I think the important thing is to ride on the wave,
Right away.
and to learn from you, right?
Yep.
So there, I think, okay, so we've narrowed it down. We have to partner so that we don't have to learn anew.
New
So
skills.
like if
Yeah.
Adarsh is great, I will take also what are you good at? Okay, when we start talking about solutions in urban design, I want to think that. I want to design the doorknob.
Yeah.
So me, I will design the doorknob. You think of the market and stuff like this. And then we can do two things at the same time. So it's just the openness to disrupt things and to partner up, not do it alone, because gone are the days when you will do it alone. Now it's to do things together. There.
Well said.
Okay, very well said. So anything from Archie and Burley?
Burley.
Let's move on to our next question. So,
Okay.
Get the
Okay.
ball rolling.
9 o'clock already.
Alright.
Okay.
Time
So
flies.
now that we have established our entrepreneurial spirit, so guys, take note. I hope you are taking notes. Okay. Now we are going to apply it on the urban fabric. So what are your thoughts on how the design and creative industries should approach urban issues? Yeah, I think this one, Choi and Adarsh, I think you have really worked on the urban issues, and I think that you have some strong portfolio with regards this one. So, what are your thoughts on how the design and creative industries should approach urban issues? So, this is kind of broad because design is broad and creatives is actually broader, diba? So yeah, in your own experience, or at least in your own opinion, what are your thoughts on how should the industry, creative and design, should approach on urban issues? So I think,
Go, Darsh.
yeah, with Adarsh first. Adarsh,
Go, Darsh.
What a jump.
Adarsh.
Are
think
you
he-
happy to respond to this first?
I think he cannot hear us.
Can you hear?
I think it's
I
just
think
a delay.
naglalag siya.
Do you want me to start first?
You can hear us.
Ano ba? Wait.
Okay. How do you
Yeah.
respond to urban issues?
I don't mind.
Okay.
Go.
Can you guys hear me all right? I'm getting a bit of lag.
Yes, you are great.
You
You
hear
are
us.
great. Oh,
Okay. I think Choi, I think you're going to start this one first.
Ito thumbs
Okay.
parang sa ano, si Doctor
Oh,
Strange.
hi.
Gumagano na siya.
Okay.
Go ahead, Miss Choi.
Okay. I'm sure he'll pick it up later on.
Yep.
You know, I've created, and I think I've created a formula of 3 things. Number 1, I said that I will do projects as far as urban issues are concerned, which are relationship based. I will talk to the people, and this is about design thinking. What do you need? What is the problem? Because I don't wanna nanny people. I don't wanna design something that they don't need. I don't wanna design anything that is not about that will not build the relationship between me and the people I'm working with. So I think all of the things that I do have to be relationship based. And so which means it has to be authentically about my relationship with the people I will design for. Which means I have to listen well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then next, it has to be responsive to the world, to everything that concerns them. Because for all you know, they have needs. And they want me as a designer to work with them. But I know kasi the situation and how things go. It cannot just be about them. But like I cannot design anything for them that would cause traffic. It has to be like I have to know the whole the context. So it has to be responsive to the context. And then lastly, I have to be also sensitive to the environment. That nature will not be a material for me, but a partner. Because at this point, and we've talked about this earlier also, this is what it means to work towards circularity. That there'll be zero waste. That if I take a tree to be a material for anything that I create, everything has to be used. Now the leaves have to be something. It has to be like with much respect that I use that particular element of nature so that there is zero waste. Because there's too much waste around us. I mean, I'm really disheartened by this, and we think it's just waste that but it's actually our lack of respect for the earth, and it's the only home we have. I know everyone's leaving for Mars and the moon, whatever, but I mean, everyone is still here, and I have to. I cannot like run for your life. Take care of yourself and leave everyone behind. Because even Prince Edward said about that. Everyone seems to be leaving because they have the money for it. But 80% of my people are poor, and they will be staying behind. You have to take care of this planet, and that's how I feel about it. So 3 things: all the things that I do have to be relationship based. Everything has to be responsive, and it has to be about respect for nature. The 3 R's. Kakatuwa, no? I didn't even plan that, but but it's easier to remember, right? There. Go,
Okay.
Adarsh.
Adarsh, yes.
Poor guy.
Can you hear us?
What's the question
Are you
again?
okay, Adarsh?
Are you with us?
You may want to ask the question again.
Hey guys.
Yes.
Hi.
I think
Can you
you're
hear us
back.
well? Can you hear us well?
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear
Yes.
us?
Dun, 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 dun.
Remember yan? Jeopardy ata yan, you know? Oh my God.
Oo.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's ask muna about
Di pa ako lasing, ha?
okay. Hindi ka naglulusan up lang kasi stress na stress ka mo. Stress na stress ka, sorry. Bawal pala yung mom.
Oh, grabe. And it's not even about the household. It's
Okay.
I have a question. So interesting you mentioned about zero waste. Kasi I have this client na they want to build a village. Then I was giving concept studies of villages, and then I happened to present this zero waste village in Japan. So what they do, they have like 63 segregations for waste, and then they
Wow.
have like a community hub that they just like segregate everything. Then my client was like, will it be marketable? So parang how do we, as the middleman, the designer, how do we, like better push, better market this kind of mentality?
You know,
When at the end of the day, it's not our call, because we don't hold the money. We're not the,
you can make it your call.
I
Really?
guess.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Adarsh, you're here. Come on. Tell us.
Yeah.
What's the question?
Sorry,
Okay. Okay, Adarsh. The question is, what are your thoughts? Yeah. Adarsh? Yes.
There you go.
What are your thoughts on how the design and creative industry should approach urban issues?
Yeah, no, I think the first word that comes to my mind is empathy, right?
Empathy, yeah.
I think
Empathy, yes.
Touched up on this. Hello?
That's such a good answer.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Empathy.
Just
good.
speak. We can hear you.
I think he's speaking.
It's just that it's freezing, right?
Yeah.
He's
Well,
in the
anyway,
bottom.
for our listeners and our viewers, if you have any questions or you want to pitch in some ideas, you can jot it down on the comment section over YouTube and of course over Facebook. Ayan. Ayan, join, sabi ni UATSTC. So, bumati muna tayo.
You know, I love what Burley put on the table right now because I'm working with two other architects, and they happen to say that in this particular province in the Philippines, there is a big supply of this waste material. And then we said, why don't we talk to the manufacturers? Because that's the whole idea about the circular design. So, you know how it is when we do BIM, diba? BIM tells you that for this big wall area, you need, let's say, 20 pieces of 1.2 by 2.4 Hardilite or whatever. And then that's what you order. I was thinking, why don't we tell the manufacturer, I have 240 square meters of wall area, and this is the measurement. Produce that for me, and then they'll deliver it as is. And bawa, they have their measurement. Like we can have it 2.4, depending it. Plus, it's cut already according to the specifications we give them through BIM, and then they produce it, and there is no waste on site. And then they said, but it's going to be more expensive. Yeah, because you're the first. But between the cost and the zero waste we're producing, we're advocating something. And for all you know, everyone wants it also. Because you know how it is, we order 5% more so that pag nabasag, ganyan. Even that should be covered by the material supplier.
Mm-hmm.
And to be an amazing thing because we had a guest, he's an engineer, Arthur Huang, and he teaches at the Harvard, and he's from Taiwan, and you should look him up. I will help you find him. You will have him talk to you in one
Oh,
of
sure.
yeah, I'm like your ambassador.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because he's very, he talaga does with PPE. He does everything from materials for furniture and whatever like this. And then I said, why don't you keep on doing this? You know that trash is so expensive. That's what he said. Then I said, oh my God, parang yung mga cadavers. Ay, parang, it's like so expensive. Because sometimes when people see that there is a market for it, all of a sudden it just goes up. Pero parang just to say that that is how we can work around circularity. What do you think, Adarsh?
I'm finally back. I'm hoping this works for the 100th time.
Nice to hear you.
I've switched from my laptop to my iPad to my laptop to my iPad, and I'm just hoping this is working.
Oh, we're patient. We will wait for you, Adarsh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
urban
I mean, I
issues.
was talking about empathy, right? And I think empathy
Yes,
is very,
empathy.
very important.
Yeah.
Right. In the world that we live in today, I think we forget about just empathy, right? We forget to put ourselves into other people's shoes and actually feel what they feel, right? And so, I mean, if you're talking about larger scale businesses and so on, then it's hard to tell them that to cut down your profits, right? I mean, you're not going to tell Amazon to cut down your profits or anyone like that. I mean, it's really, really difficult to do that, right? But I mean, this is where I think the government should play a role, right? The public sector needs to play a role in making sure that human rights and environmental rights are equally given priority to, right? While when we're trying to create any solutions to this, right? And so I mean, us as a smaller scale actor in the overall system, we need more kind of support from governments, from NGOs, from anyone, and that would be really, really helpful, right? Because at the end of the day, it is very reflexive, right? So from one way, an entrepreneur goes into an existing market and kind of creates his business there, but there's also an idea that we can create our market around our idea, right? And so that's the other way that we can actually go about creating solutions, right? So we have a problem, and we all have a problem. We all know that there's some issues, like social issues, environmental issues. If we go into it with a solution, how would I phrase this? I would say something along the lines of it's not necessarily all about profits, right?
Yeah.
I think when we live in this really capitalistic world, it's where everything seems to be about profits. We need to kind of be able to take a step back from that as well, right? We need to be able, because capitalism is literally the cause of so many issues around the world, right? It may be beneficial to some. It may be, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into the politics of, this type of thinking and stuff like that. But, it does play a massive part in the way that we live our lives, right? So it's very, very transactional, right? So we give, we give someone something, we get something back. But I think the fact that capitalism created, there's that money factor now, right? So we can't afford it, right? Whereas I think in terms of, I think about the future, and it'll just be terrible continuing the way that we are, right? And so what I would say is, if money is a representation of time, a value of time, then why don't we just exchange exchange ideas, services, goods in terms of time, right? I think that creates a whole kind of step away from this idea that we can't afford it. Because I mean, the way this is like my personal thinking, right? We value people who destroy the environment more than we actually value the people who want to save it, right? Which doesn't sound right to anyone.
Agree.
Right? Like it really doesn't sound right. Because when we go to this market, we want food for cheap, right? But the fact that it takes so long to actually produce this food, more than like, okay, let me make a comparison, right? Like on one side we have a musician, right? On the other side we have maybe a farmer, right? At the end of the day, you can probably live without the musician, but they're valued so much more in society for some reason. Whereas farmers, like, they take ages to produce their like goods, but we don't value them as much, right? We should be valuing them for their time as much as anyone else, right? But that's kind of where we have this problem, and I think capitalism is one of the reasons for that, right? Because when we think about exploitation, we think about exploitation of people, but capitalism is a form of exploitation, right? We exploit humans, we exploit labor, we exploit land, we exploit nature, and so that's kind of the reasons that like why we are where we are, right?
Yeah.
And so and another thing that this is my last point, and I'll just shut up after this. But like something that Choi said was like along the lines of big businesses. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, could you just cut me out right now? Sorry, I just-
Would it have something to do with nature? Would it have something to do with? Would that be it? No, I'm sure it's gonna come back.
Yeah,
It's
it will
really
come back
to come
at some
back
point.
later.
Okay.
Yeah, but he said something about also farmers and musicians. No one wants to be a farmer now.
No.
And
Exactly.
then people think also that like I keep on saying that architecture has a lot to do with food security, but only until the pandemic was I listened to. That's why I don't know if you've heard of this. He's a stevedore. He's American and he works in the ports of San Francisco. You know what he said? His name is Eric Hoffer, and I think you will appreciate what he said. That in the time of drastic change, it is the learners who will inherit the future, and the learned will live beautifully equipped in a world that no longer exists. So I think if ever we think a certain way because we have been taught that way, now is the time for us to perhaps unlearn and then start learning again what this world is telling us. Like exactly as you said before, who gets money? I mean, how do you bring ahead a family if you're a farmer? But like right now, leave the city, go back to the rural areas and plant, and perhaps you're gonna feed your family. And then maybe we can organize ourselves better and feed the whole community. And then, so what happens in the city? I don't know. There are no more jobs. And you know what they said? There are like articles in the Philippines until 2024 that we will be enjoying poverty. This is what's gonna happen to us. So how do you feed your family? So let's. It's a question for us to actually think about. So
Definitely.
there. Tamps, you want to say something?
Yes, we have a phone in.
Question.
Sir Chris Aquino just said that I think us architects should look at waste as a resource instead of a waste. It should be cradle to cradle.
Yeah, I think that's circularity.
He's trying to say that cradle to grave is not a thing anymore. It should be like cradle to cradle. Then again, after cradle to cradle, another cradle to cradle. So yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So
It's
how
like
about
no, when we buy how to say cement, what do you do about the bag? There has to be a solution for that. not just throw it. Don't use it. I don't know. We really have to think, like when we buy biscuits or whatever. Do we buy the container or do we buy the individually wrapped? And then what do you do with the
Sachets.
plastic that's there, right?
I,
Stuff
I
like
mean,
those.
it doesn't even need to be like produced goods, right? I mean, even
Right.
the fact that we buy vegetables and we put them in plastic when for like millions of like years, that like for example, a banana. Who puts a banana in a plastic, right?
I
That
know.
makes no sense. A
No,
banana
but
already
excuse
has a
me.
wrapper that's been
But they
like
deliver to
vacuumed.
me. But if they deliver to me a plastic, I mean, a banana that's not been wrapped, I feel they're disrespecting me. For some reason. No, I think maybe we can tell Lazada or the delivery guys here, don't wrap it. I'm fine with paper, but
Yeah, paper bags.
Yeah.
right,
Paper bags,
yeah.
yeah.
But then you know how it is. You're right. You're right, Adarsh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so how about okay, okay.
something quickly about sorry, who was it? The comment.
Christopher.
Chris Aquino.
Yeah, what
Christopher,
I would
this
say
one, this
is
one.
yeah, what I would say is we shouldn't think of it as cradle to cradle. We should think about cradle to cradles, right? So like how
Cradle to
can one
cradle.
thing be created into more and more things, right? How can we rather than going in circles, right? Because at the end of the day, we still need to inject things within the cycle
Yeah.
to make it run
Yeah.
somehow, right? We need to
It's like
something.
it's like you're seeking the highest and best use of that material, of that
Yeah.
resource.
After.
Yeah.
Okay, how about you, Archie? What are your thoughts on how the design and creatives industry should approach urban issues?
Oh my God, I'm a urban planner. I'm just a simple. I'm a spectator at this point. But something that you've been Choi and Adarsh was talking about the circularity, the creative cradle. I think one of my most not really a rant. I mean, it's a rant, no. But the way we design and produce stuff now that are supposed to be unrepairable, no. Like let's say I'm gonna take a shot at Apple, and I think recently they released um, a
13.
statement. Sorry,
iPhone 13?
iPhone
Yeah,
13. No, no, no.
13.
Yeah,
Or
but
the iPad mini?
whatever. I have Apple products here, but whatever Apple
Okay.
product. I think they released a statement before wherein parts for their devices are going to be harder to acquire by third-party repair services. So that basically kills the third-party repair business. And most of the time, well, most of the people that I know that would have a faulty iPhone or whatever, when they go to Apple and have it repaired, most of the time they just replace it or they just tell you that you have to buy a new one. And I think this kind of what do you call this culture crept in on us. I can still remember my dad when I was a kid. He's gonna be repairing my. I play basketball all the time when I was a kid, and I'm gonna be going through slippers like twice a week, and I can remember him repairing it until the rubber gives out. But
Yeah.
now, when when the sole of a shoe, it always comes back to shoes for me. I don't know why. Yeah. When the sole of the shoe, I mean,
Gives way.
degrades or this
Wear and
it
tear.
yeah, wear and tear. We just throw it away and buy a new one. Everybody has a few pairs now. Well, back in the day, I have only one pair for for physical activities, one for school. Now everybody has like 10 pairs of athletic shoes, but we're all overweight. Or I may be just speaking about myself, but
I have to tell you something.
yeah,
When
what?
I buy a pair of shoes, let's
Yes,
say it's on sale and I buy 3 pairs,
yeah.
I go to my shoe case and shoe cabinet and I look at three. I have to give it away,
Mm.
so I don't accumulate.
There you
So
go.
maybe it's already discipline. And then I saw my kids. They're saying, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm looking what I can give away because I have only a pair of legs. I mean, pair of feet, and it's not a matter of like you use it until it gives way, but
Yeah.
I don't need 20 pairs or 2,000 pairs like Madam Imelda Marcos. I'm sorry, it's not political. But just to say, just a discipline.
Yeah.
I just need, and then now, how often do you go out? I'm
Yeah.
often barefooted at home.
Exactly.
Oh my
Exactly. Exactly. It doesn't even matter anymore at the end of the day. At this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
it's so nice that we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think if you don't talk about it, it's just there. I mean,
Yep.
can you imagine we've been at this pandemic for 2 years already?
Yep. Yep. And I'm speaking from the point of view of a normal person, not as a designer. Everybody can do it. No, not throw everything out when it can be repaired. Is it something that small that we can? You don't need that new phone every year, right? Like switch phones every 5 years or until it gives out, or until it's not usable anymore, or until it doesn't get any more internet signal. Like no kidding. But you know what I mean? You don't have to get everything new. You didn't need this. You don't. Oh, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. No, you don't. So I think that's just like a little adjustment that everybody could do, not as a designer, not as an engineer, not as a planner, not as whatever, but a simple person, right?
Yeah.
Simple as my wife likes to keep those plastic spoon and fork things, those that comes with the delivery. Just imagine reusing them again one more time. You just prolong the life of that product 100%, right?
Yeah.
So that's less trash in the
Can we melt
landfill.
it? I
I
don't
don't
know. Can
know.
we
Some
melt
plastics,
it?
I think some plastics you can, but some plastics you can't reuse anymore because they're too. The material is gonna be too
Toxic. The
yeah,
materials.
unusable. I think that's one of the issues of cradle to cradle. The more you reuse it, the more the material deteriorates. So at some point, like Adarsh said, you're gonna be putting in new stuff.
I know. It's so funny. I have a friend. He studied sustainability at the National University of Singapore. And then there's another architect who said, "You know what sustainability is? Just allow things to die. And then design again." That's sustainability to him.
Sustainable
Then
practice.
die. And then start over. And then these are wonderful things. That's why I think one thing about architecture and urban design, I think we have to continue with the discourse. That's why I commend you for this setup. This is fantastic.
No,
Amazing.
actually, we commend you for this setup because you are the one who like this kind of
Really?
fireside chat.
Like no presentations.
No presentations, no glitz and glamour of PowerPoint or Canva or
Yeah,
whatever.
like just to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Mm-mm.
And I'm half
Through the
drunk.
bottle.
No, not.
I think we have. I think we'll have another one like this. So, okay, another comment from our chapter president in entrepreneurship. Don't stop reinventing yourself and your business. You may not do anything wrong, but not reinventing business will die. Yeah, you have to cope up. Exactly, you have to be agile. You have to cope up with times in business. And of course, also from Ina. Hi guys, thank you for this great conversation. I'd like to ask for advice on how to step out of a designer bubble, like Echo Chamber of Architects. I feel like I'm having trouble with reaching out to communities that needs design services and instead being stuck in conversations with fellow architects who are also my age, who are in the 20s. Have you experienced this feeling? How do you execute participative design? Thank you.
Go,
May, may,
Adar.
may, may dumulong pa sa atin, nakakaloka. But thank you, Rina. O, diba? Effective ang pagiging radio station broadcaster ko. Charay. Ayan. Okay. So, her comment is that how will you unstuck yourself in order for you to reach out to communities who need design services?
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult to start with, isn't it? Like, it's very daunting. Like, you're just gonna step out and go to communities that kind of need design services, right? And what this comes down to is, I would say, is process, right? And process is very important in like everything that we do, right? So it's all about process. So how you approach this kind of activity will lead to like how what the outcomes are at the end of the day, right? And so what I would say is with participatory like design and human-centered design, what the best thing to do is just, again, I go back, is be empathetic, go out there and just talk to these people, and they will tell you their issues and their needs, right? With and so what I think that's the start of when you start a venture, right? It's when you figure out needs that are not being fulfilled, right? And so when you can uh, specify the exact needs that you want to solve, then you'll find a solution that is appropriate for them. But what I would say is that the thing is, you don't be too attached to a certain idea or a solution, right? When you go into like the field, don't go in with a certain solution in mind. You need to embrace the ambiguity when you're going into the field, right? You need to embrace it, because if not, then you're gonna be stuck in a mindset that you know what the solution is, right? And that's the thing with like designers, we don't always know what the solution is, right? There's no right or wrong, but we don't always know what the solution is. But when we go out into the field, we need to be able to just clear our minds, know solutions, and then talk to them, get their needs, and then design around that, right? But again, process, right? But after we get the design, we need to be able to like iterate the design, right? We need to be able to let them say what is right, what is wrong, what they like, what they don't like, and then at that point you'll find a final solution, right? You can't. I mean, this will take months, sometimes years to find, right? You will have to be working again, and sometimes you don't get paid for it. But the thing is, if you're really driven to create these solutions, then you will find a way to, get make do with what you have, right? And so you create these solutions, and then, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I would say for this question.
I see.
Empathy.
Empathy, yeah.
I agree. Adarsh is such a wise young man. I agree with everything that he has said.
The wise man from Nepal.
Yeah. One thing I've learned also is that when you design, you always start at a randomly, because I mean, of course, your good heart speaking with the people, you start at a random and you keep on iterating until the end result is still a probability. So I'm looking instead on the process, also because the world changes in front of you. But if you are there with the people, you ask them what their needs are, what their perceived needs are, and then you create a prototype. Now, this is design thinking. You create something. Is this what you want? And then they're gonna say, "Well, not actually. Change this." Okay. So, and then you chunk that solution, and then you move to the next solution, and then you'll keep on listening to them, and then we have until the end of the month. So let's find out. And then you agree with them that this is the solution we're gonna make, and then let's do it. And then you change it a bit as you go along. And then it's exactly as Adarsh has said, that if we listen well and we create the narrative for them, even the mistakes will be part of the narrative. Well, you said you wanted this. Yeah, but we changed our mind along the way. Okay, why did you change your mind? And then, you have to be able to articulate, because you're the one who studied design. And then you work with them. And then you come up with something. And then they're going to say, I think that's what you want. And then maybe in a year's time, it changes because the world changes again. Now, the important thing is that it's responsive to their needs and that you're there with a relationship. And I love that he said, no, that you're able to listen to them, and maybe they don't have the words for it, but then you as far as language goes, it's not so much the words alone, but translated into the design, and then you come up
Mm.
with it, and that's your interpretation of what they need. And then again, uh, it should, I think it should approximate what they really want for themselves. And the more you stay with them, the more you understand who they are. And it's true, not to be attached to anything, because the world outside, it changes. And so again, the agility comes in, and then the and this is how we thrive, because sometimes also this is so difficult now when your client doesn't know what they want, so you have to approximate that also, right? And so this is where creativity comes in. And I love that this is the way we do it. So, like, let's say you find yourself at a standstill with your client, just propose to them something, and then you say, are you fine with it? Maybe they still don't know, but then you're there and you're the creative one, and so you just stay with them. And then when they
Yeah.
find out, oh, the the rain comes in if we design it this way, but
Yeah.
you know that already, because we know the science of it. We know,
Yeah.
so this is what it is. I mean, let's not be afraid, because in the end, as designer and as a client, they have to trust you. And when they feel that you care about them and their needs, you can make all the mistakes possible. They will forgive it, and then you change it again with them. So you make the mistake with them. I love it also earlier, Adarsh, when you said that who doesn't make a mistake? Everyone makes a mistake, and that's how we discover also, and that's how character grows as well.
Mhm.
So in the end, maybe we get tired, but then we start over, and that's how humanity is. We forgive and we forget, and then we start over.
Yep.
I think we're the better persons for it also,
There you go.
right? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Choi and Adarsh. What was our prompt again? Sorry, I got lost.
Sorry, Tams. Can I just add?
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay,
very
go.
quickly. In Ina's question, it's a three-parter, I think. How to step out the designer bubble? Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Meet
yeah.
other people. Take up a hobby.
Okay,
Take
okay,
up cooking. Take up whatever online class or
okay.
whatever. Just
Okay,
oh,
this
Tams, your partner.
reminds me during my her question reminds me during my years in Archeon when I was working actually for the first time with Choi that time.
There you go.
Um, uh, Tinuro, they taught us about FGD. And also Architect
GD,
Lichauco, yeah,
GG.
focus group
group
discussion.
discussion, yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we are not just dealing we were not just dealing with Benilde. We are dealing with the community because as you know the physical sprawling, the physical manifestation of the campus is the community itself in Benilde, right?
Hmm.
So medyo shanty yung areas ng ng around Benilde, right? Talagang Architect de Chauco and Architect Equipaje uh, told us to, oh, you go there on weekends, you go there in the mga eskinita. Ginawa talaga namin yun. We immerse ourselves with the community. Even Architect Equipaje, you have a friend in Benilde, right? O Happy Thursday ka doon. Ganon, for the sake of work. So you have to get to know, you have to put yourself in the shoe ng community that you are serving. So I think that is one advice that I have learned during my apprenticeship years. And of
Yeah,
course,
now I remember that's where I met you also.
yeah,
I
that's
remember
why.
it was. But
And
yeah, that's
and
so
your
nice.
and ayun nga. Later na.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think Adarsh just
We're
went
there
out.
for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
How about you, Burley? Okay, really sorry. Okay. Thoughts on the creative and design industry on urban issues?
Lalim, no? Grabe si Tams, no? Hindi pa umiinom si Burley.
Okay, so I think with how to approach this question is we have to first define, I have to first define what is our current urban issue. So, ano nga ba?
Oh, as I said, you have to pick. Well, you pick a struggle. You pick a problem. I think that is one. You cannot change the world overnight. Eh. So
Let us say mobility.
yeah, mobility. That is one.
Parex.
Actually, yun yeah. Being in the heritage program in UP, that's where my focus is at, on how we can preserve our cultural heritage. But paano nga ba in the pandemic? How do we approach this if we are so divided with our built environment mismo? Kasi we can't physically go there, and we're all stuck in our own rooms. And you know, I don't know. Next question.
Okay. Anyway, let's flash some comments. So one of our speaker for this year's Arktoberfest, Jenry, hello. Architect Jenry Bonifacio Umali said he's chiming in that you have to design around human needs and outcomes. So guys, on October 30, Jenry and his boss, his mentor, will be in our screens, of course. And next,
Adarsh wants to say something.
Team Kobe.
Okay.
Okay.
Adarsh wants to say something.
Okay, Adarsh, yes.
Could we go back to the previous comment?
Okay. This one.
I think we need, as someone who has studied regenerative design and permaculture, we need to put human needs on an equal pedestal to the environmental needs, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're designing solutions, we don't design with just the social side of things. We also need to think about the environmental side of things, right? And
I agree.
Nature. The thing is, I think what happens often is we separate, especially living in cities, we often separate humans and nature when we are nature, right? And so the fact that we need to be able to think in a way that we are how nature wants us to be, and so we need to design in a way like that, right? And
I agree.
I think one of these things that I got told during my course was that, we belong to the land. Land doesn't belong to us, right? Mm-hmm. And so we always need to take that into consideration when thinking about how we design, right? Because land should, in my eyes, should not really belong to anyone, right? It belongs to all of us, right? We're all humans and we all deserve to have a place on this land. And all these, it's a very idealistic utopian thinking, but yeah, that's just needed to slide that in there.
I have to agree with what Adarsh is saying. Like, practically, the reason why we find ourselves in this situation is because man actually, we have done a lot of human-centered design, and everything else is around man with no care for the environment,
nature.
And then sometimes they say that we are in the Anthropocene age, and then the geologists say, but it doesn't show in the earth. When you do a section, it doesn't show. I don't care, it shows everywhere. Make sure. Maybe that's another thing that the environment is telling us, that if nature, if the earth is suffering like that. Can you imagine when the pandemic happened? All of a sudden, I live right across Manila Bay, and the blue is bluer than I can ever imagine it. Because all of a sudden, no one is taking the car, no one and things are changing a lot until they also put the dolomite, and that's another subject. And And then of course there's the rains and all that. But what I'm saying is like, if ever the earth is what it is now, it's because man has really put himself in the center of it. But then when you think about it also, before this, there was it was okay. I mean, you throw things outside your window, and then everything goes to the sea, and then it disintegrates. But plastic was discovered in 1955, and we still continued to throw things outside our window. And then now it's not disintegrating because plastic will outlive us.
Yes.
100 years, whatever, depends on what kind of a plastic that is. But now, I this is the reason also why I have this job of working with informing people, because no one cares. And so I agree with what Adarsh is saying, that when we design, we have to think of not just humans, but also the environment. There are partners, they're not objects for us to just use as material. We partner with the environment. I agree with that. Now, there's that sensitivity. Although it's true that, that's why we said human centered design with a plus. That it's more like more aware, more woke. There you go.
More woke.
Yeah, old people don't know this. Okay.
Okay, we have a phone in. We have a question coming from Kenneth Baltazar. How do you guys keep yourself motivated as an architect, as a designer, or just a creative in general?
Choi?
Choi, you go
Yeah, I think
first.
you have to have a big heart. I know. I love my kids,
Mhm.
biological and otherwise. I have students. When the pandemic happened, I found some of my students who were supposed to take the licensure exam at a loss. Really, Miss, what are we gonna do? I said, I don't know. I just know that we have to observe. And then we put up Studio Nexus, which is a studio that questioned the way things are running. Like, what did we teach you in school? Because they were my students, and I asked them, what did we teach you? 1.2 meters sidewalk, where there are sidewalks. I said, no more, because 1.2 is how much, and that's about just 3 to 4 feet. Between you and me, there has to be about 6 feet. So what are we
Yes.
gonna do? Right? So those sidewalks are non-existent. So what are
Yeah.
we gonna do? Everyone going to the north on this side and everyone going to the south on the other side. Just so we can, and then
Have a
what? Do we
distance.
cut into the streets?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why I love now we will go into this, huh? You were, I don't know, one of the questions that you asked us is like, what will cities be in the future?
Mm.
I love Paris, the 15-minute series. And I never understood why, when I was taking my master's in Barcelona, why we kept on talking about the how do you say this, blockchains.
Mhm.
Blockchains are small, integral, and network.
Yes.
And I thought it was just about money. But instead, it is a great model for how we should design our cities. 15 minutes. Our sidewalks have to be the extension of the restaurant or anything that is like that, because now there has to be more um,
Interaction.
ventilation. And then your sidewalk has to be part garden and part bikes. And then everything has to be reached in 15 minutes. Melbourne has it for 20 minutes. And then you go home. Because longer than that, you may catch the virus. And then
Yeah.
I don't know how the next, they were saying that the next pandemic might be about water. So how do we
No.
prepare ourselves for this? Well, Bill Gates was able to find that with your poo you can turn it into water, but forget it. I will not be alive by then. It was your problem.
That's my
Our
problem
problem, not my
anymore.
problem anymore.
That's
But
your
then, like
problem.
right now, let's look
Can I
at that
quickly
from that
jump in?
point of view. That we, uh, is there why? What is the wisdom of doing things from this point of view? That we just stay within the what is small, what is integral, and what is connected. Maybe that is how it should be among us. Anyway, we're connected, no, through the internet, through our phones. That's why Archie, when you said, "Do I need to buy the new iPhone 13?" I don't know. I'm guilty because I just want to be connected. Like I want to be connected with Adarsh after tonight. Like no, because I've worked with Utopia also, and finding you. I think now you have put Kathmandu in my heart, and this big heart tells me that I have to think of the people of Kathmandu as well. So like
Oh.
maybe we can do some work together, learning from you, and doing it for the Philippines as well, because there may be some things that we can
Yeah.
discuss through this course like this. So this is what I
One,
think.
yeah, one quick thing would just be like, okay, so I don't know what the development cycle is like in Manila or anything like the contextual knowledge about the Philippines, right? But in Nepal, what I would say is most areas in Kathmandu at least, most areas within the ring road are actually like 2-minute cities, right? Like everything is it's you can literally get everything in 2 minutes by either walking or cycling, right?
What?
But the thing is, okay, we have a perception here that the Western world is better, right? And so we're developing into like from a 2-minute city, we're developing outwards rather than inwards, right? So we already have an ideal solution that works for the people here, but people want to drive cars. People would substitute convenience for actual like
quality
needs, like I mean like equality, or just like in terms of just it's more convenient to like walk 5 minutes to get get something that you need than take a car and drive 15 minutes for the same distance, right? And so the fact that the development in Kathmandu at least it's pointing towards that direction, right? And towards that, like the ring road here is 8 lanes. I don't know why, right? Like it's this idea that it's a predict and provide type of ideology, right? So we look at what the future holds, like we have statistics and we'll chart them, and then when it comes into like the design, they will design an 8-lane highway for people who don't have cars, right? Most of the people here own motorcycles and scooters, right? Like those 2-wheelers. And so the fact that we want to build more cars because in the future there'll be more cars is such a stupid logic, like and so the fact that Kathmandu is moving towards a 20-minute city from a 2-minute city is it bobbles my mind, right?
It's backwards.
Yeah, but I mean it's what the government wants, and this is where we have to come in and just tell them no, enough is enough, right? Like I think that's where we have to think about human kind of greed and not greed but like like wants, right, over needs. Right, like, and we go back into process, right? What are people's needs and what are people's wants, right? And we need to be able to separate them, because some things that you want you don't necessarily need, like the iPhone 13, right? Right?
Yeah.
Like
I need that. No,
you don't really need it, right? You want it, but you don't need it, right? And so we need to think about that kind of thing as well.
Now, if I buy an iPhone 13, I'll feel guilty.
Actually, I was planning.
Counting out.
I was
So what?
looking for
If my iPhone 10 comes out, should it mean that I should buy another iPhone 10 and not a 13?
Anyway.
Bad example.
How about you, Burley? Burley, what keeps you motivated as an architect?
Who says I'm motivated? Joe.
First of all, girl, who says that you are motivated?
Burley, higher salary?
And, okay, Burley.
No.
Let's rephrase the question. What keeps you motivated in your, well, technically a conservation architect, the thing that you're studying right now? What keeps you motivated about it?
Who says? No, I'm sure. No, what keeps me continuing
Motivated.
Yes, this one.
continuing whatever I do is just how do we make our spaces better? That's always the question. How do we
Uh-huh.
make it better? And the approach will always be different because the world is forever changing, like what Adarsh and Choi is saying, that we have to respond to the initial problems and build from there. Kasi papatong it will always be more and more and it will always evolve and it will be even better with collaborations and partnerships with interdisciplinary sectors and policy makers. Yeah. Is that the correct? Thank you for that question.
Next question.
Oh, that's good. No.
Okay. So we have another question which came in before I give the next prompt. Okay, how can you make an idealistic way of thinking into a realistic one in being an architect and on both macro and micro scale? So how that your ideas, yeah. Pag Miss Universe sa mga, you know what? After this show, you can join now Miss Universe for sure. Okay, how can you make idealistic way of thinking into a realistic one as a designer in a macro and micro scale, of course?
One thing I would say is that the fact that I feel like idealists are like far, like really like they're few and far between, right? Like it's hard to find people who are genuinely like idealistic, right? I it's really difficult to find them. Most people find themselves very realistic or pessimistic because of the world that kind of surrounds them, the environment that they grew up in, the the environment that they live in, right? And so it's really hard to be idealistic sometimes, right? But what I would say is, I think the fact that I would say more idealists the more idealists that are out there, right? And I think this is a mindset as well, right? People become pessimistic. People are not born pessimistic, right? Like people are not born idealistic. People are not born realistic. Like it's something. It's a mindset change, right? It's something about unlearning, like we talked about earlier, right? We have to unlearn what we already know and kind of think about things in a different way. Frame a picture in different ways, right? And what I would say is the more idealist people out there, the better it is for all of us, right? Because at the end of the day, if we're all idealists, we'd all want the ideal solution, right? We wouldn't need to think about it in like a way of like, okay, he's very idealistic, he's really pessimistic. How do we find it, like a balance between them two, right? The balance would shift towards the idealist, right? And so I would say the fact that if you can motivate people to be more idealistic, if you can give people the idea that the future can be much greater than it currently is, right? Then that's a starting point, I would say, right? Both on a macro and micro scale. The people that you talk to on a daily basis, the fact that you can bring your idealist like mindset towards them and you can give them hope, I think that's the start. And macro, I mean, it's pretty much how it starts, right? So for now, like for example, if me and Choi start talking in a very idealistic way, we get a few people involved, like Archie, Tams, and Burley. Like now we're all idealists, right? For example, right? You may have some kind of reservations. You may have some kind of, like maybe arguments against it, right? But if we all start thinking like this, we don't have to like believe it. Maybe believing it would help, but like if we like all start thinking like this, then it becomes the norm. Like everyone starts thinking about this, about like problems like this, right? The future is great, right? We'll all think about like this, like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
I get it.
Okay, thank you very much, Adarsh. How about you, Choi? How do
Yes,
you?
I get
Yes.
like this.
Mhm.
I think no matter how bad it is, the five of us, for instance, still have it good. And behind us are people who may be feeling bad. Like, we've had our education, which has explained a lot of things to us. I think we have to start by the things that have been given to us. And since we were given this opportunity to for the choice, we are responsible for something. Just recently, I was reading something. What do you know? What the enemy that good is the enemy of great.
Mm. Mm.
So what I'm saying
Mediocre.
is like you have it good and
Mm.
you're fine with good
Yep.
and you're just go on with your life good,
Yep.
will
Yep.
never be great.
Yep.
And when we are great and we work towards that, we would like have more space for other people to have it good as well.
Yep.
So I think everything that Adarsh said is really true. And then maybe I would kick it up a notch higher by saying that what are you feeling bad about? You studied, you were given a choice. You have choices because I was
Yep.
talking with the young people also because Adarsh, you have to know that we are being somehow the practice of architecture in the Philippines is being attacked right now. But then it's
Yep.
a good
Oh
way.
my God.
You can either look at it from the negative or the positive
Yep.
point of view.
Yep.
But then let's say personally, I want to look at it as a good way of kicking it up a notch higher.
Yep.
We have been given choices because we were able to study,
Yep.
and not just locally, even
Yep.
outside. And then we have food on the table. So many have it bad.
Yep.
So like maybe being given so much, it's our responsibility to keep ourselves positive and keep believing that together we can do it. The question also is that for everyone, the pandemic is there. For everyone, life is so volatile and everything is uncertain.
Yep.
Problems are complex.
Yep.
And, really the future ahead of us is so ambiguous.
Yep.
But then we're bright people. I mean, I have to say, everything that I've heard here so far are things that like give me hope that I can just, disappear into the night and you
Yep.
guys will
Oh
bring the
no.
world ahead. Yeah, I mean, because I'm so much older than you. But then what I'm saying is like, I would like to think that, fine, things are bad, but rather than think of it as that obstacle, the obstacle is the way. It's actually the thing that should inspire us to maybe ask a lot of more questions so that we can find the answers because there are answers, maybe even better than the old answers that we've had before because I have to think, when you say globalization, it started in the 18th century and then the gut happened whereby uh, there's like people bonding together, countries pulling in together. And then the WTO happened and they created the framework so that countries will work together. And then there are bilateral agreements. And then
Mm.
people really band together. And this means that the small players will die. Because like even the garlic and the onions like this, I'd rather buy from Thailand because it's cheaper than the ones that I get from the Philippines. And then it's fine. So this is like how it is. Now with the pandemic, we go back to smaller things. So what's happening? I thought it's better if we were bigger. No, now it's not. So like this thing I'm getting crazy with the roller coaster of like things that are being offered to us. But we're intelligent and we can see. Okay, so this is the way to go. Then let's do it. Let's respond to these times and then in the end it's your good heart that actually I loved it when Adarsh was saying it's capitalism that is actually making us question how things are. Why am I like when I think that he studied in Australia, God in heaven, I
I
wonder.
studied in the UK, by the way. That was a mistake.
UK.
Okay, UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, so I was thinking about and then How many from Kathmandu actually get that opportunity,
Exactly.
right?
Very
And then
few.
even for me, what the heck? Why they have to study in Barcelona?
Yep.
And then you will meet Aldo tomorrow. Oh my God, that guy is like, it blows my brain. And then he's such a good person. I mean, it's like let's just count the blessings that we have and let's just use it. Maybe it was given to me, and then let's work together because it's the best way to survive this terrible world.
Yep.
Is it terrible? I don't know. I think it's fine.
No, it's terrible. You're correct about that.
Terrible, right? Okay, fine. So there.
Okay. Wait.
Did you feel the passion?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do, of course.
I'm gonna add a little bit about what Adarsh and Choi said. Norma's question is how do you make an idealistic way of thinking into a realistic one? I think Adarsh touched up on it when you have to be optimistic. I think a step down from being an idealist is being optimistic, and it ties very nicely with the entrepreneurial spirit. As an entrepreneur, you have to be optimistic about your whatever you're doing. You can't be an entrepreneur and be pessimistic about things. And I'd rather actually be mistaken for an optimist because at the end of the day, optimists have hope, and I think that's the most important thing. You need to have hope to dream of a better world, better cities, better everything. And if you're loud enough about it, you're gonna be finding other people who are also hopeful. And I think right now, some journeys of a hopeful person, of an optimistic person, is gonna be lonesome. Maybe because you're not too loud, you're not loud about it. You're not finding your tribe, but one day you're gonna be finding your group who will support you. Like Qatar said, we found each other here, five of us. Hopefully, you were all optimistic about things.
Let's drink to
And
that.
yeah, there you go. So yeah, don't worry about finding a way to be to of making something of something idealistic into to something real, but focus on being optimistic. Focus on your attitude, which
Mm.
also ties with the question earlier about motivation. I take my motivation like I'm taking a bath every day. Every day you come across news that are negative, that will really take you down, and you gotta also when you get home, clean up, right? Take a bath. Same with your mental state, no? With motivation. Me myself, I try to read books. Sometimes I don't have the time. I watch YouTube. There's a lot of sources. Maybe talk to a friend, which can pick you up. You know,
Or
so
have
don't
a
think that
fireside chat like here.
of a fireside chat like this.
Friday
So
night.
Yeah, we will have a lot of things like this in the future.
yeah. So take your motivation like you're taking a bath. Do it every day.
Yeah, there are places where there's no water. You know when they said that the pandemic you have to wash your hands. We don't have water, God in heaven. I mean,
Yeah.
we have
Stay
water,
optimistic.
Archie.
It's gonna rain.
Yeah.
It's gonna rain. You gotta catch it rain. Make something about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. That's my take. Sorry,
Yeah.
Tams.
That's
You wanna pick
Okay.
another question or?
So we have last two questions for our guests tonight. So I think we'll just have Choi and Adarsh answer na lang so that because
Yeah,
we
go
had
go.
the show for 2 hour already for 2 hours. Yeah.
Are there
So
still
first,
people listening to us?
hmm?
There are people still listening to us. I
Yeah,
don't care.
Yeah, there are still people who are still listening to us actually.
50 million are watching us right now.
Yeah. There's a lot. There are people naman who's watching.
That's optimistic.
Yes.
That's optimistic.
So guys, if
There
you
you go.
still have questions, you can still pitch it in over the comment sections over YouTube and Facebook. So, but these are the last two questions. Okay. Wait. From Jack Salvador, this needs more alcohol. Sorry. Yeah. So get your booze right now because we still have two questions to ask our guests for tonight.
Go
Okay, for
ahead, guys.
Adarsh and Choi, what are your ideas on public sector towards our built environment?
Can you define public sector, right? Is that government? Is that the public? It's what do
I
you mean?
think I think we are pertaining about the government.
Hot topic.
Yeah, hot topic. Because there's a lot of things happening, of course, right now. And next year we have our election. So, yeah, it's a hot topic. And then Archie removed his camera. Yeah. So, what do you think? Okay, let's start with Adarsh because it's a different setting. And it's, yeah, he will not get caught by this. So, I don't know. Okay. Adarsh, what do you think about the public sector or the government towards our built environment or towards your built environment over there?
I think what I would say is I wouldn't ask the government to be in charge of building things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the government's job is to make sure that everything's actually running smoothly, right? And so like having the correct regulations and frameworks in order for private sector companies to actually build, right? I think that would be because in the Nepalese context, the Nepalese government can't really afford to build every single housing development or office development. Like it's just not possible, right? I think the private sector and the public sector need to work in unison, and what I would say is the public sector's role would be more of that of like kind of overlooking, making sure things are being done to their kind of like to how they want it to be built, if that makes sense, right? I don't necessarily think the public sector should get involved too much in building things. I feel like that's where a lot of corruption lies. But like I feel like where there's a competitive private sector, at the end of the day, the people will reap the most benefits.
So, what are your thoughts, Archie, on that?
I have no thoughts on that. No.
Okay, you don't have your thoughts.
I have
Super early, oh, super
Okay,
early.
okay.
So in an idealistic world, it must be the government to build things because they must oversee everything.
Provide
You know,
everything.
because they agree to what should be built and they approve or disapprove on what should be built and what should not be built compared to the private sectors where they want to serve themselves. That's why if you see our cities now, there's no hierarchy on skyscrapers because they want to serve themselves. We don't have this importance of civic architecture anymore because we get empowered by the big corporations that going back to capitalism that in a city the bigger the building the more important, right? But it's now it's nothing. It's just like, oh, it's a big tower. It's not like, oh, this is the pride of my city. It's not like that anymore. It's just like,
Yeah,
so
just another building for rent like that.
yeah. So in an ideal world, yeah, talaga, the government should be in charge of this. But let's say, but then like there's a perfect example. This Chinese or this bridge going to Binondo to Intramuros. It's going to harm our World Heritage listing of San Agustin, our UNESCO World Heritage list. So it's gonna remove that since it's we're building that bridge. So where's government? Do they even should they care, or is it public sector that has to save our city?
I mean, this is what I mean. Where in Nepal, the private sector and the public sector can sometimes be very, very. The lines between the private sector and the public sector can be very, very like blurred in a way, right? Because we have public sector people having businesses, right? Which is a clear conflict of interest, right? Which should not be allowed in any world, right?
Yeah.
And what this is what I mean when I say, like, you know, the government plays their role in terms of making sure everything's being followed, right? Making sure the regulations are being followed, making sure the regulations are up to date, to be honest, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but like here in Nepal, some regulations go back to like the 1950s, right? And so we don't we've learned a lot since then, right? And so we need these regulations need to be up to date and be enforced correctly. And that's where I think more money of like more public money should be spent, right? Telling people, like, you know, like making sure that the private sector are being accountable for their actions, right? So like if the government is very pro sustainable, pro regenerative development, they can make sure that these private sector actors are not working, you know, out of line, you know. And that's kind of the role, I think, of the government. And you know, like the people who don't follow the laws should get punished, I think. You know, I mean, like that's kind of my view on things in terms of regulations like this. There's some laws that are just sorry. Firing squad. No, none of that.
No, I think
I don't condone
anywhere.
violence.
I don't know. I think personally, I think architects, since we know, you have to get more involved. I'd like to hold the line for dialogue because I don't know how it is in Kathmandu, but then in the Philippines, nothing happens, notwithstanding our proposals for design. Nothing happens without two things: politics and economics. Who's going to spend for it and who's going to design, who's going to make the decision on it. And so if that's the case, anyway, whatever they decide and whatever they spend money on, there has to be some technology to it, and it's the architects and the engineers perhaps and all the professionals put together. So there has to be a way for us to actually contribute to the decision that would create, or like exactly as Bertie was talking about, a bridge that will be built. Now they're asking also about there's an article that I saw about the Parex. Where are the architects and the urban planners? They're there, but who leads? The one who is going to spend for it, and then the government that allows it. And when you think about it, this is going to be an expressway. It's a super highway that will be used by those with cars, which is like 20% of the population of Manila. While the 80% will watch because they don't have cars. See?
Cheer.
So like this is very, very, very painful. So architects have to get more involved. So we cannot like just not say anything. And I think the United Architects of the Philippines, I've heard that they're putting up a group that will put forward. I mean, a lot of things are being put forward by the Commission on Governance, and I really have great respect for them for doing it. But then, even if you're not part of the organization, you have to get involved. And we happen to live in a world that kind of allows that. That's why I love it. I love it that we're able to speak up. Sometimes speaking up scares people because the space is not free. I mean, they think that you're too disruptive. But then, what kind of an environment is that if you're not allowed to speak your mind, right? Anyway, in the end, we all mean well and we'd like to contribute. And so it's good that you've said this. I'm taking note of it so that I could tell who I work for, because this is true. Yeah, but
shots fired.
No, really, it's for us.
The alcohol is taking over.
I'm going to put you on top of that TWG Archie for Paris, and you the bridge to San Agustin, Burley. No, I mean, I think we have to be. You know what I learned also, that we have to be open, we have to be disruptive, we have to be innovative, And then we have to be also independent and isolated. It's painful when you're alone. And then we have to be authored. We have to take responsibility for the ideas that we put forward.
Yep.
And that, and then also we have to be open-ended. Because someone is allowed to take your idea, to hack it. And this is the whole idea also. But you should be credited for the idea that came from you first. Like, let's say I heard something here. I heard Archie said, and I agree with him. But maybe I will put forward, stuff like this. We have to speak up, right? Okay, Archie, I will not say your name. Fine. No, but just to say, it's so important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Totally agree. This also comes to mind when I see the news and there are some issues like flooding, stuff like that. I always ask my wife, "Oh, where's the environmental planners? Where's their statement about it?" They have to be active, not ask
Yes.
one very popular architect planner about it. No, it has to be a collective. I mean, they have the resources, man, and they have the authority because they're the organization that stands for all those.
I think we have to get ourselves involved. It's time that we get ourselves involved, right? Because
True.
I don't think we have the right to curse the darkness if we don't light a candle.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We can totally on that.
I'm picking up a lot of lines, taking down a lot of notes from Miss
Yeah,
Choi
it's such the idea.
and Darsh.
How can you even, speak, speak against the government, whatever? You're not even getting involved. So you have to get involved. Okay.
How do we get involved?
Let's like this group. You are in a chapter. STC is a strong chapter. You came up with this. This is your voice. Maybe the next thing you do, you write a white paper. We are against Parex or whatever. Right? I'm here. I'll help you. Okay, next question.
Everybody's mum about
Okay,
the
for
topic.
the last question for Adarsh and Miss Choi. Choi, I mean, mapapagalitan po ako.
Yeah.
Okay, so that because we had an overtime, like this is the longest one we had. Okay, this is a personal question. Where do you see your practice in the next 10 years? So we
Go,
start with
Adarsh.
Adarsh. We start with Adarsh.
What do you mean in terms of my practice?
Yeah, in terms of your career in solving urban issues, in incubating startups, things like that.
I think one area I'm really interested right now, and somewhere I would want my career to go would just be creating stronger connections between rural and urban areas. Right. I think the fact that Nepal is still a very agricultural country, right, and we all have it is rapidly urbanizing, but it is still a very, very agricultural based country, right? And we still have like examples of urban food solutions, but 90% of our food comes from India or China, right? And so that's a very big problem for just our population in general, where we don't have any idea about the quality of the food. We don't have any idea about where it comes from, what product, what chemicals have been used in order to produce it. I think there's so many things that connect rural and urban areas that we don't necessarily take. We take for granted, actually, right? And I think in the next 10 years, within 10 years, I would want to help startups dealing with various areas, right? Because I think waste is another interesting areas, right? Because urban waste ends up in some rural playground or something, right? That's the problem. We need to we need to think about solutions in a very holistic way. And I think if I would think that I'm gonna step completely away from urban planning at that point,
Mhm.
right? That knowledge will be within me for forever, right? Like I have that knowledge with me, I have that experience. Now it's about like just applying it, right? And so I did HCD through Utopia. I've learned systems thinking through Utopia. I've learned like about regenerative design and permaculture design through academia, and all of these mindsets are just helping me create like a more holistic idea of how I want the future to be, right? And now it's just about motivating and mobilizing other people who want the same future, right? And so I feel like right now I have a platform somewhat to start kind of building on this, right? And start mobilizing people to start wanting better for the city and for the country, like overall, right? Because at the end of the day, I think, I personally hate the idea of borders, right? Because like I said, we belong to the land doesn't belong to us. And so the fact that the borders should not stop us from collaborating in any way, right? Like we've talked about throughout this, this session over here. Like, we talked about collaboration. I mean, regional collaboration, international collaboration. We can, just very, very idealistically, just create a better tomorrow for everyone, right? And look, I'm 26, soon to be 27, and like I'm already thinking about like what is the world gonna be like when I have kids, right? And so I think it's gonna I don't want them to grow up in this world, like it's not the world that like the next generation deserve, right? And the problem is the longer that we live the way that we do, I think the more the next generation continues in the same footsteps as the previous generations, right? And so the next generation will continue in our footsteps, and so we need to create like we need to create a strong foundation, a strong base for the next generation to build upon. Right. And so, and this is where my ideologies on like regenerative development come in, right? Like, why create something circular when we can create something that is, benefiting nature? Why can't we, instead of producing things that are still, like, if we think about a lot of things that we do, like still at the end of the day, we are somehow exploiting people or land. Right? In one way or another, we are exploiting those two things. And so we need to like wean ourselves off of this stuff, right? I think there's a book about this, and I think it's called The Price of Our Happiness, right? And so we need to kind of like wean we can be happy without, exploiting things, right? We should be able to. And I think that's where I want to be. Like, I want to be motivating the next generation to do better, because I think for the generation that is coming up, I think it's a bit too late already. They're already 18 and they already have their mindsets in place. They're already going through university, and I'm really afraid about the maybe the next 10 years of pass outs, right? People who go are graduating from university, because I don't think their ideologies are any different to what we are thinking. Like they'll be thinking about the same thing, like profits, money, how do I survive, how do I make money, and we need to find a solution, a system that doesn't require transactions, right? Well, like that doesn't require money as the main form of transactions. For example, like you guys like I would happily pay in time, right? Like if you guys did something for me, then I would put my time into however much time you want me to put in, that for the exchange of goods and services, right? So for example, if a farmer if I go to a farmer, ask him for like onions and garlic, right, and and I ask him how much do you want, and if he asks me for like a day of your time, then I would say okay, you have it, right, and then so I will pay, like I'll go there, work for him for a day. I mean, that's at the end of the day, I'm surviving, I'm thriving, and so is he, right? And so we need, and I think that's the way that we create a better world, right? We need to be more community like focused. I mean, last point here, and I'll stop. Right, like Choi brought out. Sorry, I'm
It's
just
okay.
rambling on.
It's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
One thing that we talked about earlier was like the blockchain and kind of creating smaller blocks of communities, right? And sometimes bigger is not better, right? Because globalization, at the end of the day, was built upon the exploitation of some other smaller groups, and so like finding justice there will be very, very difficult, right? And so what I would say is, with a permaculture mindset, all of us can and with zoning our areas within ourselves, we can actually create a change, right? And so if your house, if your home, you as an individual is zone 0, you can find people in your close surrounding area to be your zone 1s, right? The people you participate, you collaborate with on a daily basis, almost, like you live off of each other type of thing. So if I am growing tomatoes and this guy's growing potatoes, we can just swap, right? Because at the end of the day, neither of us has to like buy anything, right? And so from zone 1, you go into zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, and then by zone 5, you're in literally rural areas, right? Where you can still find a way to connect zone 0 to zone 7, right? And so and then at that point, we're all a community, we're all helping each other, right? And there's no money to be seen. Like, we all just thrive together. And I think that's kind of where I'll stop. Sorry.
That's
It's
okay.
okay. Okay, Choi, where do you see the practice, your practice, for the next 10 years, in the next 10 years?
I find myself in education, and I think that this country needs that. Yeah, I think the country, I mean our people, lack that very much. I think we're very capable, but I think we have been deprived of a proper education for too long. Um, I loved everything that Adarsh said, and I want to adopt him. Just to say, because when I was in Barcelona, I would work Sundays in what we call social agriculture, and things would grow. And I was imagining the whole community having stew, because I would be growing like a dozen potatoes and another one, a dozen carrots, and before you know it, everyone's just sharing, and we're not buying anything. And it is exactly as Adarsh was saying, but I think that's too idealistic for the whole world to actually get into right now. But then when I think about it, in 10 years, what I'm gonna do, I think I'll still be teaching. But then I love architecture so much so that I think the best way to learn architecture is not through lectures, but through discourse. Something like this that we talk about and we listen to everyone. It's a free space where everyone can talk about their ideas and allow ourselves to make mistakes, but we continue to listen to one another. And then also through studio, because architecture in the Philippines is not taught in studio. It's like still, this is the list of things, and it's teaching architecture through typologies. I believe in going through the process, which means we are more open to what the world may possibly ask from us, and then we would respond to it. And the sensitivity to the world that is changing in front of us is, I think, the best way to approach architecture. In 10 years, I believe I will be working with people because I think each one has in him the possibility of helping build the world that we find ourselves in. And if for anything, architects, I think, because of the training that they have had, even without the license, the training that architects have had in those 5 years is good enough for them to be leaders in their communities. Now, if you get your license, that's fine because that's your responsibility towards society. But we're in front of a pandemic right now, and there are like talks. If you look at Netflix, there's a part there where it says what would be the next pandemic about. And I would like us to be more agile in welcoming that world in front of us. I don't know how the world will be in the next 10 years, but I would like for us to be prepared to welcome it, to respond to it, and to push everyone not to think that alone you can do it. We're a community. We can talk about it. I'm in Facebook. You have any ideas right now, you tell me about it and let's work it out. I don't care if you're licensed or not. I think if you're a human being, I have the same heart as yours, and I'd like it to beat for the same thing that your heart is beating for. I just feel that my practice will be about working with communities. I will be continuously an educator, and I'm also an architect. I'm building a house in Antipolo right now, and Adarsh, you would be happy about this. On the property line, there is a 40-year-old mango tree, and so its roots is like all over the place. I don't want to cut down that tree in agreement with the client. I'm going to put piles and I beams on top, and the two floors will be hanging so that underneath the roots can grow. So like we can be partners with the tree, and then we don't have to stop it from growing, and then the house will be like on stilts, the same way regular Filipino houses are. And I love that we found this solution so that we respect the tree, which the client loves, and then we respect the house that the client wants to have. And it's so wonderful when you just propose it and put it out there so that architects also in this way is are scientists. And if we share solutions like this, and then maybe, yeah, it will be a world where everyone would have a place, and will be problem solvers, not to curtail uh, problems, but to really find solutions that will be good for everyone, and we could learn from one another. Like Adarsh, I would like very much to open my heart to this point where we can be better human beings in the process. And I think I love that architecture allows me that possibility. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Choi and Adarsh. And that's it. That's a wrap for this episode of Archie Hustle. So, Burley, can you, yung mga susunod nating episode for Arktoberfest, Burley?
Okay.
That's,
So I want to say thank you, Muna, for super inspiring messages from Adarsh and Choi. And I'm inviting all of our viewers to join us next tomorrow. Is this correct? You're asking for this.
yeah, no. Burley, the ano muna, the certificate muna.
Ah, do we have
We
it
have the
ready?
certificate. Yeah.
Okay, here.
Okay,
Okay.
Burley.
So Arktoberfest issues this certificate of recognition to architect Cynthia Funk for sharing her valuable time and knowledge as our guest speaker on Arktoberfest 2021 Urban Thoughts via live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, given this 15th of October 2021. Signed by Architect Bonstara, Chapter President, and me, Chapter Secretary. Thank
Part 2
you.
na to,
So,
part 2.
next
Thank you, ma'am.
certificate. Oh. For our next certificate picture issues the certificate of recognition to Adarsh Rai for sharing his valuable time and knowledge as our guest speaker on Arktoberfest Urban Thoughts via live stream on Facebook and YouTube, given this 15th of October, signed again by Chapter President and Chapter Secretary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Burley. Thank you very much also to Choi and Adarsh. We'll just put you on backstage muna. Okay.
Thank you.
Ano nga ba mag-put sa
See you in a little bit.
See you in a bit. See you in a bit.
Okay.
Sorry, Ed. Okay, guys, for the rest of our Arktoberfest, we are inviting you tomorrow, and I think the registration is still open. Tomorrow,
Yes.
we will have on deck is my mentor, Miss Chris Libunao, who will be streaming from the USA, and also we will have Aldo Sola. Ano paano nga pronunciation nun?
Soljatso.
Soljatso. Wait lang kay ma'am. Ma'am, ano po, ano?
Solatso.
Solatso. Okay.
Palazzo.
So, thank you, ma'am. Okay, we will have, of course, Aldo Solatso, of course, in our stream. It is accredited with 1 CPD each. Ayan.
Yes.
So, guys, sa mga hindi pa nag-register, register na kayo, and our CPD seminar will start by 1 p.m. We would also like to thank our sponsors, BITC, Roof Tiles, Foamy Philippines, Starken, ITC Corporation, Boysen, the #1 paint, and of course, Crown Pipes. Ayan. So sa mga ano pa ba? Yeah.
Kailangan na CPD dyan.
Tama kayo na CPD, naka-open po. Okay. Thank you, Sir Chris Aquino. Thank you, Kenneth Baltazar.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you rin kay Norman Orbien and kay Sir Benj and kay President Raremo. So you may follow us over YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter with the handle at UAPSTC. So I think that's it, guys. See you tomorrow. I will be with Architect Raremo tomorrow over Zoom. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you.